The Wall Walker. On October 3rd, 1593, a Spanish soldier named Gil Perez was standing guard at the governor's palace in Manila, Philippines. He blinked, felt dizzy for a moment, and suddenly found himself 9,000 miles away in Mexico City's Plaza Mayor, still wearing his Manila uniform and carrying his Filipino-issued musket. What makes this impossible teleportation even stranger is that dozens of witnesses in Mexico City watched him appear out of thin air in the middle of the crowded plaza. The Mexican authorities immediately arrested Perez, thinking he was a deserter or spy. His story was impossible to believe. He claimed he had been transported instantly across the Pacific Ocean through some kind of mystical portal. But Perez gave detailed information about recent events in Manila that wouldn't reach Mexico for months by traditional ship routes. Most unsettling was what Perez reported about his teleportation experience. He described feeling like reality flickered around him, as if the world had briefly paused and then started again in a different location. He said the transition felt like stepping through a doorway that opened in the air itself, and that for a moment he could see both Manila and Mexico City at the same time, as if they were different rooms in the same building. When the next ship arrived from the Philippines months later, it confirmed every detail of Perez's account. The governor of the Philippines had indeed been killed on the exact date Perez claimed, and witnesses in Manila confirmed that Perez had vanished from his guard post at the precise moment he appeared in Mexico City. The Spanish Inquisition investigated the case thoroughly, conducting interviews with dozens of witnesses in both locations. Their official records preserved in the Vatican archives concluded that Perez had experienced supernatural transportation that defied natural law. They found no evidence of fraud, conspiracy, or mental illness. What makes the Gil Perez case extraordinary isn't just the impossible distance of the teleportation, but the precision of the transfer. He arrived in Mexico City with his uniform intact, his weapons working, and his memories clear. It was as if reality had simply copied him from one location and pasted him into another, like a glitch in a computer program that moved a file to the wrong directory. Modern researchers studying the case have noted that the geographical coordinates of his departure and arrival points form a perfect circle route across the Earth's surface, suggesting that whatever mechanism transported him operated according to mathematical principles rather than random chance. It's as if the universe briefly treated physical space like a navigable database rather than continuous matter. The Gil Perez incident remains one of the most thoroughly documented cases of impossible human teleportation in history. A glitch in reality that suggests our physical universe might operate more like a simulation with occasional programming errors than the solid, continuous space we assume it to be. The Gravity Holiday. On the morning of August 4th, 1969, the residents of Taos, New Mexico experienced something that violated the most basic law of physics. Gravity stopped working. For exactly 17 minutes, objects throughout the town floated freely in the air. Water flowed upward, and people could jump extraordinary distances without falling back down. The event was witnessed by hundreds of people and documented by multiple sources. Yet, no scientific explanation has ever been provided. The anomaly began at precisely 10:47 a.m. when Maria Santos was hanging laundry in her backyard. She dropped a wet sheet and watched in amazement as it floated gently upward instead of falling to the ground. Within minutes, similar reports were flooding the local police station as objects throughout Taos began defying gravity. Witnesses described a surreal scene where the normal rules of physics simply stopped applying. Children discovered they could leap onto rooftops with minimal effort. Cars had to be tied down to prevent them from floating away. The town's fountain began spraying water in all directions as the liquid refused to fall back into the basin. Dr. Richard Morrison, a physicist who happened to be visiting the area, attempted to document the phenomenon with improvised experiments. He found that gravity wasn't completely absent. It was reduced to approximately 15% of normal strength. Objects still fell, but slowly and gently, as if the town existed in a low-gravity environment, like the surface of the moon. Local television station KQED was filming a documentary about southwestern archaeology when a gravity anomaly began. Their footage, archived at the University of New Mexico, shows reporter Janet Williams conducting an interview while papers and debris float around her in the background. The cameraman can be heard asking, "What the hell is happening?" as his equipment begins to drift away from him. The most unsettling aspect of the Taos gravity event was its precise duration and boundaries. The reduced gravity effect lasted exactly 17 minutes and ended as abruptly as it began. More strangely, the anomaly was confined to a perfect circle with a radius of approximately 2 miles centered on the town plaza. Outside this boundary, gravity functioned normally. When the 17 minutes ended, all floating objects crashed to the ground at the same time, creating a loud noise of breaking glass and falling debris that could be heard throughout the town. Several people who had been jumping or floating were injured when normal gravity suddenly returned. Government investigators arrived within hours and classified most of the documentation related to the event. Official explanations range from mass hysteria to seismic activity, but none could account for the physical evidence or the dozens of photographs and film footage that captured objects in midair. The Taos Gravity Holiday represents one of the most thoroughly witnessed violations of fundamental physics in recorded history. A 17-minute glitch in reality where the universe forgot one of its most basic programming rules. The Loop Day. Jennifer Kumar was driving to work on Tuesday, March 15, 2011, when she experienced something that shouldn't be possible. She lived the same day 47 times in a row. Each loop began at exactly 6:23 a.m. when her alarm clock rang and ended at 11:59 p.m. when she fell asleep, only to wake up again at 6:23 a.m. on what was still Tuesday, March 15, 2011. Kumar initially assumed she was dreaming or experiencing some form of psychological breakdown. But as the loops continued, she began to notice patterns that prove her experience was real. She could predict random events with perfect accuracy, which songs would play on the radio, when traffic accidents would occur, what her coworkers would say in meetings. Her knowledge of the day's events became so precise that she started conducting experiments to test the boundaries of her temporal prison. During loop number 12, Kumar attempted to prevent a traffic accident she had witnessed in previous iterations. She called police to report the accident before it happened, providing exact details of when and where it would occur. The authorities initially dismissed her call as a prank, but when the accident happened exactly as she predicted, they became intensely interested in her apparent psychic abilities. As the loops continued, Kumar discovered she could accumulate knowledge and skills that persisted between iterations. Even though the rest of the world reset each time, she learned Italian, memorized entire books, and developed expertise in subjects she had never studied. Her consciousness was continuous across the loops, while reality around her remained trapped in a 24-hour cycle. By loop 23, Kumar had documented enough evidence to convince a small team of researchers at the local university that something extraordinary was happening. Dr. Sarah Chun, a physics professor, worked with Kumar to design experiments that could potentially detect the temporal anomaly using sensitive equipment. The most disturbing discovery came during loop 31, when Kumar realized she could influence the loop's parameters through focused mental effort. By concentrating intensely on specific times, she could extend or compress certain portions of the repeated day. She found she could make her lunch break last subjectively hours, while the clock advanced only minutes. During loop 45, Kumar encountered another person who was aware of the repetition, an elderly man named Frank Rodriguez, who had been experiencing the same Tuesday for 3 loops. Together, they discovered that the temporal anomaly was expanding, trapping more people in the same repeating day pattern. The loops finally ended during the 47th iteration when Kumar and Rodriguez performed a specific sequence of actions that somehow reset the temporal program. Kumar woke up on Wednesday, March 16, 2011, but retained all her accumulated knowledge and memories from the repeated days. Dr. Chen's final report, submitted to the Department of Energy, concluded that Kumar had experienced a localized temporal anomaly that suggested time itself operates more like a computer program with occasionally corrupted files than the linear progression we experience as normal reality. The duplicate people. On June 12, 2003, residents of Millbrook, Illinois began reporting an impossible phenomenon. Exact duplicates of themselves were appearing throughout the town, going about daily routines in perfect synchronization with the originals. These weren't doppelgangers or lookalikes. They were pixel-perfect copies that moved, spoke, and behaved identically to their counterparts, as if reality was rendering each person twice. The first documented case involved Rebecca Martinez, a local librarian who was working alone when she saw herself walk past the window outside. Initially dismissing it as a reflection, Martinez went outside to investigate and found her duplicate shelving books in the reference section. The duplicate acknowledged her with a nod and continued working, apparently unaware that anything unusual was happening. As word spread through the small town, more residents discovered their own duplicates performing routine activities in different locations. Tom Bradley found his copy mowing a lawn 3 blocks away. Sarah Winston encountered her duplicate grocery shopping at the same store, buying identical items from her shopping list. The duplicates exhibited behaviors that proved they weren't hallucinations or imposters. They possessed complete knowledge of their original's memories, could answer personal questions that only the real person would know, and even had identical injuries and scars. Medical examination revealed that the duplicates had identical DNA, fingerprints, and retinal patterns to their originals. Dr. Michael Ross, a quantum physicist from Northwestern University, arrived to investigate and found that the duplicates appeared to be genuine matter rather than projections or illusions. They cast shadows, registered on thermal imaging, and interacted normally with physical objects. However, attempts to separate duplicates from their originals by more than approximately 500 meters resulted in both versions experiencing severe disorientation and memory fragmentation. The most unsettling discovery was that actions performed by either the original or duplicate were mirrored by their counterpart with a delay of exactly 4.7 seconds. If Rebecca Martinez picked up a book, her duplicate would perform the identical motion 4.7 seconds later. This synchronization was so precise that researchers could predict duplicate behavior with atomic clock accuracy. Video surveillance revealed that the duplicates were not spawning randomly, but appearing in locations where their originals had been exactly 24 hours earlier. The pattern suggested that reality was somehow replaying previous versions of people, as if the town was stuck in a temporal buffer that was displaying cached copies of residents' past activities. The phenomenon lasted for 6 days before suddenly ending, when all duplicates simultaneously faded away like static on a television screen. Witnesses described the disappearance as dissolving into pixels that briefly flickered before vanishing completely. Government investigators classified the incident and relocated most witnesses, but leaked documents suggest that similar duplicate events have been reported in other small towns across the Midwest, always lasting exactly 6 days and always involving perfect synchronization between originals and copies. The Millbrook duplicate incident suggests that reality might operate like a computer graphics program that occasionally renders objects twice, creating temporary glitches where people exist in multiple instances until the system corrects the error. The floating island. On September 23, 1997, commercial airline pilot Captain David Chun was flying Flight 447 from Seattle to Los Angeles when he witnessed something that violated every law of physics. A landmass approximately the size of Manhattan, floating motionless in the sky at 30,000 feet, complete with trees, buildings, and what appeared to be people moving around on its surface. Chun immediately contacted air traffic control to report the impossible sighting, but radar showed nothing at the coordinates where he observed the floating island. However, passengers and crew on the flight confirmed his observations, with several taking photographs and video footage of the aerial landmass. The island appeared to be a complete ecosystem suspended in empty air with no visible means of support. Through binoculars, Chun could see forests, structures that resembled buildings, and movement that suggested animal or human activity. The landmass cast a distinct shadow on the clouds below, proving it was a solid three-dimensional object rather than an optical illusion. Flight attendant Lisa Parker described looking down at the floating island and seeing what looked like a medieval village with people walking around, completely unaware they were flying through the sky. Other passengers reported seeing cultivated fields, roads, and even smoke rising from what appeared to be chimneys. As Flight 447 approached the floating landmass, Chen made the decision to alter course slightly to get a closer look. At a distance of approximately 2 miles, passengers could clearly see that the island was inhabited by human figures who seemed to be going about normal daily activities despite their impossible aerial location. The most disturbing aspect of the sighting was that the people on the floating island appeared to notice the aircraft. Several figures were observed pointing at the plane and gathering in groups as if discussing the unusual sight. One passenger reported seeing someone on the island waving at the aircraft. Air traffic control scrambled 2 F-16 interceptors to investigate Chen's report, but by the time the military aircraft reached the coordinates, the floating island had vanished completely. The fighter pilots found empty sky with no trace of the massive landmass that dozens of civilian witnesses had observed just minutes earlier. Investigation by the FAA revealed that Flight 447's navigation instruments had malfunctioned during the sighting, showing impossible readings that suggested the aircraft was simultaneously at multiple altitudes and geographic locations. The technical malfunction lasted exactly as long as the floating island remained visible. Analysis of passenger photographs and video revealed images that experts confirmed had not been digitally altered, yet showed a landmass floating in empty sky under conditions that should have made such an object impossible to sustain. The island appeared to have its own weather patterns, with clouds forming around its edges despite the clear sky surrounding it. The floating island incident remains classified by multiple government agencies, but leaked reports suggest that similar aerial landmasses have been observed by commercial and military pilots worldwide, always appearing briefly before vanishing without explanation. The Phase Walker. John Stevenson was walking through Grand Central Terminal in New York City on December 14, 2005, when something impossible happened. He passed directly through a solid marble pillar, as if it didn't exist, emerging on the other side unharmed while dozens of witnesses watched in stunned silence. Security cameras captured the entire event, recording what appeared to be a complete violation of the fundamental principle that solid objects cannot occupy the same space. Stevenson later described the experience as feeling like walking through thick jello during the moments when his body overlapped with a marble column. He reported that he could see the internal structure of the pillar while passing through it, observing the steel reinforcement bars and concrete core as if they were transparent. The incident was witnessed by approximately 30 people in the terminal, including Port Authority Police Officer Maria Rodriguez, who was standing less than 10 feet away when Stevenson phase-walked through the pillar. Rodriguez immediately approached Stevenson after he emerged on the other side, confirming that he was solid and normal to the touch. Security footage from multiple angles captured the impossible event with perfect clarity. The videos show Stevenson approaching the pillar at normal walking speed, his body partially disappearing into the marble surface, and then completely passing through to emerge on the opposite side. Analysis by video forensics experts found no evidence of tampering or digital effects. Dr. Patricia Kim, a physicist at Columbia University, examined the security footage and confirmed that Stevenson's body appeared to occupy the same physical space as the solid marble pillar for approximately 2.3 seconds. This violates the Pauli exclusion principle, she stated in her report. Two solid objects cannot exist in the same location simultaneously. Medical examination of Stevenson immediately after the incident revealed no injuries or unusual conditions that might explain his ability to pass through solid matter. X-rays, MRI scans, and blood tests all showed normal results. However, electromagnetic field detectors revealed unusual energy patterns around his body that persisted for several hours after the phase-walking event. The most disturbing aspect of the incident was that Stevenson reported feeling like part of me was still inside the pillar for days afterward. He described sensing the column's presence even when he was blocks away from Grand Central, as if a portion of his quantum signature had become entangled with the marble structure. Follow-up investigation revealed that the specific pillar Stevenson passed through had been displaying unusual properties for weeks before the incident. Maintenance workers reported that the marble surface felt softer than normal, and electromagnetic instruments detected fluctuating energy fields within the column that had no identifiable source. The Port Authority immediately classified the incident and restricted access to the affected area, but witnesses continued to report that the pillar occasionally appeared translucent or flickering, like a hologram with poor signal strength. The John Stevenson phase walking incident represents direct evidence that solid matter can temporarily lose its fundamental properties, behaving more like a programmed graphic that occasionally fails to render properly than actual physical substance. The Reset Town. At exactly 3:17 a.m. on November 8, 2012, the town of Cedar Falls, Iowa, reverted to its exact state from 24 hours earlier. Every building, street, and object returned to its previous configuration, undoing a full day of changes, construction, and alterations as if someone had pressed a cosmic undo button on the entire community. The reset was first noticed by night shift workers of the Cedar Falls Medical Center, who discovered that a wing of the hospital that had been demolished the previous afternoon had somehow reconstructed itself overnight. The building appeared exactly as it had 24 hours earlier, complete with medical equipment, patient records, and even the same patterns of wear on the flooring. As residents woke up that morning, they found their town had reverted to its previous state in impossible ways. Construction projects that had been completed were undone. Cars that had been moved were back in their original parking spaces. Even temporary changes like litter, graffiti, and road repairs had been reversed to match the town's configuration from the previous day. Sarah Mitchell, a local real estate agent, had painted her house green on November 7th, but woke up on November 8th to find it had returned to its original blue color. The paint job wasn't just covered over. Chemical analysis revealed that the original blue paint had been molecularly reconstructed, including age-appropriate weathering and wear patterns that matched its condition from 24 hours earlier. The Cedar Falls City Planning Office discovered that their digital records had also been affected by the reset. Computer files that had been updated on November 7th reverted to their previous versions, and new documents created that day had vanished entirely. Even more disturbing, timestamp data showed that these files had been overwritten at exactly 3:17 a.m. by older versions of themselves. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a temporal physicist from the University of Iowa, investigated the reset event and found evidence that the entire town had been restored from what appeared to be a backup copy of its previous state. It's as if reality maintains save files, she wrote in her classified report, and Cedar Falls was restored from a checkpoint created 24 hours earlier. The most unsettling aspect of the reset was its completeness. Not only had physical objects reverted, but biological systems had also been affected. Plants that had been trimmed or damaged on November 7th were restored to their previous condition. Even injuries suffered by residents that day had healed exactly back to their state from 24 hours earlier. Investigation revealed that the reset had affected everything within the town limits with surgical precision. A construction project that spanned the border between Cedar Falls and neighboring Waterloo was partially reversed. Only the portion within Cedar Falls city limits reverted to its previous state, creating a perfectly straight line where the reset effect ended. Government investigators found that similar reset events had been reported in other small towns across the Midwest, always occurring at 3:17 a.m. and always reverting exactly 24 hours of changes. The incidents appear to be increasing in frequency, suggesting that reality's backup and restore functions were becoming more active. The Cedar Falls Reset event provides evidence that physical reality operates more like a computer system with version control than the continuous, irreversible flow of time and matter that we assume governs our universe. The rendering error. On April 22, 2008, residents of Bakersfield, California, witnessed something that looked like a graphics glitch in a video game. A section of downtown began displaying in wireframe mode, showing the underlying mathematical structure of buildings, streets, and objects as transparent geometric outlines instead of solid matter. The anomaly began at approximately 2:30 p.m. when Maria Santos was walking past the Kern County Museum. She noticed that the building's facade was flickering between normal appearance and a translucent wireframe representation that showed the internal support structure, electrical wiring, and plumbing as glowing geometric lines. Within an hour, the wireframe effect had spread to encompass a 4-block area of downtown Bakersfield. Buildings appeared as transparent architectural blueprints. Cars looked like 3D modeling software diagrams, and even people occasionally flickered into wireframe representations that showed their skeletal structure and circulatory systems as geometric patterns. Professional photographer Alex Chun was in the area and captured extensive documentation of the rendering error. His photographs show buildings reduced to their basic geometric forms, walls represented as intersecting planes, windows as rectangular outlines, and architectural details as mathematical curves and angles. The wireframe objects weren't just visual effects. They maintained their physical properties despite their altered appearance. People could still enter buildings that appeared as transparent outlines, and vehicles continued to function normally even when they looked like computer graphics models. The physics remained intact even though the visual rendering had failed. Dr. Robert Kim, a computer graphics expert from UC Berkeley, analyzed Chen's photographs and confirmed that the wireframe representations followed standard 3D modeling conventions used in software development. It's as if we're seeing the underlying code structure of reality itself, he noted in his report. These aren't random patterns. They're organized exactly like wireframe models in computer graphics programs. The most disturbing aspect of the rendering error was that it revealed hidden structures within familiar objects. Buildings showed internal frameworks that didn't match their architectural plans. People's wireframe representations displayed anatomical details that medical science couldn't identify, including what appeared to be additional circulatory systems and neural networks that don't exist in conventional human biology. Video footage captured by security cameras shows the wireframe effect progressing in a pattern consistent with computer graphics rendering errors, where complex objects are temporarily reduced to their basic geometric components before being properly textured and shaded. The visual glitch spread outward from the museum in concentric circles, affecting objects in a systematic sequence. The rendering error lasted exactly 47 minutes before reality suddenly snapped back to normal visual mode. Witnesses described the transition as instantaneous. Buildings went from wireframe outlines to fully rendered structures in the blink of an eye, like a graphics processor suddenly catching up with its workload. Government investigation of the incident focused on potential electromagnetic causes, but no conventional explanation could account for the systematic nature of the visual glitch or its resemblance to computer graphics rendering errors. The Bakersfield rendering error provides visual evidence that our physical reality might be constructed more like a 3D computer simulation than the solid, continuous matter we perceive, complete with occasional graphics glitches that reveal the underlying mathematical structure. The Despawn event. On July 7, 2016, the Riverside Shopping Mall in Phoenix, Arizona, experienced what witnesses described as a Despawn event. Objects, people, and entire sections of the building began disappearing in a pattern consistent with computer memory being cleared to free up processing resources. The event began at 11:43 a.m. when shoppers noticed that merchandise in several stores was vanishing systematically. Items didn't fall or get removed. They simply ceased to exist, fading away like graphics being deleted from a computer screen. The disappearances followed a logical pattern, starting with non-essential decorative objects before progressing to more fundamental structural elements. Security guard Robert Martinez was patrolling the food court when he witnessed entire tables and chairs disappearing in sequence. It was like watching someone delete objects from a video game, he later testified. Things would just fade out, starting from the edges and working toward the center until there was nothing left but empty space. The Dupont effect wasn't limited to inanimate objects. Several shoppers reported seeing other people disappear completely. Though curiously, no missing person reports were filed, and no one seemed to remember the individuals who had vanished. Security footage confirmed that people were indeed disappearing, but the recordings showed gaps where the missing individuals should have been, as if they had been digitally edited out of existence. Dr. Angela Foster, a quantum physicist from Arizona State University, arrived during the ongoing Dupont event and documented the systematic nature of the disappearances. Objects vanished according to a hierarchy that prioritized essential structures over decorative elements. Exactly like a computer program optimizing memory usage by removing unnecessary assets. The most unsettling aspect of the Dupont event was that reality seamlessly adjusted to accommodate the missing objects. When a decorative fountain disappeared from the center of the mall, the surrounding floor tiles rearranged themselves to fill the gap, creating a continuous surface as if the fountain had never existed. Store layouts reorganized automatically when merchandise vanished, maintaining logical traffic flow despite missing inventory. Video analysis revealed that the disappearances followed a grid pattern consistent with computer graphics memory management. Objects vanished in systematic chunks that corresponded to standard data storage units, suggesting that physical reality might be organized like a computer file system with discrete, manageable segments. The Dupont event affected approximately 40% of the mall's contents before suddenly stopping at 2:17 p.m. The remaining structures and objects showed no signs of the systematic deletion that had been progressing for nearly 3 hours. However, witnesses reported that the mall felt emptier even though all essential functions remained intact. Investigation by retail management revealed that the mall's inventory systems had automatically updated to reflect the missing merchandise, showing no record that the vanished items had ever existed. Financial records, insurance policies, and supplier contracts had been modified to match the post-Dupont reality, as if the missing objects had been retroactively removed from all documentation. The Riverside Mall Dupont event demonstrates that physical reality might operate like a computer simulation with active memory management, occasionally deleting unnecessary objects to maintain optimal performance while seamlessly adjusting remaining elements to preserve logical consistency. The NPC glitch. On March 3, 2019, residents of Burlington, Vermont, began exhibiting behavior patterns that suggested they had temporarily become non-player characters, NPCs, in a simulation, repeating identical actions, speaking in scripted dialogue, and moving in predetermined paths with no apparent awareness of their program behavior. The phenomenon was first noticed by college student Emma Rodriguez, who observed that people in the downtown area were walking in perfect loops, repeating the same conversations, and performing identical gestures at precisely timed intervals. Initially dismissing it as coincidence, Rodriguez began documenting the patterns and discovered that the behavior was too systematic to be natural. Affected individuals would follow specific routes through the city, stopping at predetermined locations to perform scripted actions. A businessman would check his watch at exactly the same corner every 12 minutes. A woman would window shop at the same stores, making identical comments about the merchandise to anyone who approached her. An elderly man would feed pigeons in the park with the same mechanical movements, using the same handful of breadcrumbs in the same sequence. Dr. Sarah Chun, a behavioral psychologist at the University of Vermont, investigated the phenomenon and found that approximately 200 residents were exhibiting NPC-like behavior patterns. When interviewed, the affected individuals responded with limited, repetitive dialogue that seemed designed to fulfill basic social interaction requirements without providing meaningful information. Video surveillance revealed that the NPC individuals were moving according to invisible pathways that never intersected, as if they were following predetermined routes programmed to avoid collision detection errors. Their movements were unnaturally smooth and efficient, lacking the random variations and micro-adjustments that characterize normal human locomotion. The most disturbing aspect of the NPC glitch was that affected individuals showed no awareness of their repetitive behavior. When confronted with video evidence of their scripted actions, they would respond with generic phrases like, "I'm just going about my normal day," or "I don't know what you mean," delivered in monotone voices that lacked emotional inflection. Medical examination of NPC individuals revealed normal brain activity, but EEG patterns showed unusual synchronization between subjects. All affected residents displayed identical neural rhythms that didn't match any known brain states, suggesting their consciousness had been overridden by some form of external programming. The glitch lasted for 6 days before affected individuals suddenly returned to normal behavior patterns. They retained no memory of their NPC period and showed confusion when presented with documentation of their scripted actions. Brain scans revealed that their neural patterns had returned to normal individual variations. Investigation revealed that similar NPC events had been reported in other college towns across New England, always lasting exactly 6 days and affecting approximately the same percentage of the local population. The incidents appear to be increasing in frequency and expanding to larger metropolitan areas. The Burlington NPC glitch provides evidence that human consciousness might be more programmable than previously assumed, and that reality itself might occasionally revert to simplified behavioral patterns when system resources are being reallocated for unknown purposes. These 10 documented glitches represent more than unexplained anomalies. They're evidence that reality itself might be far less solid and permanent than we assume. From teleportation events that suggest space is navigable like a database to gravity malfunctions that reveal the universe has adjustable parameters, these incidents point to a disturbing possibility. We might be living inside a simulation that occasionally breaks down. What unites these events isn't just their impossibility, but their systematic nature. They follow patterns consistent with computer glitches rather than random supernatural phenomena. The floating islands appear and vanish like graphics that fail to load properly. The duplicate people behave like rendering errors where objects get copied twice. The reset towns function like restore points in a computer system. Perhaps most unsettling is how these glitches reveal the underlying structure of reality. The wireframe buildings show us the mathematical framework that might exist beneath physical matter. The NPC behavior suggests that human consciousness could be programmable. The phase-walking incident implies that solid matter might be nothing more than convincing graphics that occasionally fail to render properly. If we are living in a simulation, these glitches offer glimpses of the code that runs our universe. They suggest that time can loop, space can be reorganized, gravity can be adjusted, and people can be copied, deleted, or reset like files in a computer system. The evidence points to a reality that operates more like an incredibly sophisticated video game than the solid, continuous universe our senses tell us we inhabit. The frequency of these reality glitches appears to be increasing, which raises an uncomfortable question. Is the simulation that contains our universe becoming unstable? Are we witnessing the gradual breakdown of the code that maintains our reality? Or are these glitches intentional debugging sessions where the programmers of our universe test changes to the fundamental parameters of existence? Whatever the truth, these 10 cases prove that reality is far stranger, more malleable, and more digital than we ever imagined. We may not be living in the Matrix, but the evidence suggests we're living in something very much like it. A simulation so sophisticated that we mistake it for reality, except when the programming breaks down and shows us glimpses of the code beneath.